This is Resonance 104.4 FM. Flipping marvellous. I'm Nick Hennegan, and welcome to another exciting episode of Literary London, where we talk about things, well, literary and London-y, although not exclusively. And as is our wont this time, not only are we on Resonance FM in glorious stereo, if you're listening in stereo, of course, you can see that we're also in vision. Yes. Oh, yes, we're recording this. It's going to go on the Maverick Theatre Company YouTube channel, and it'll also be on a brand new website called bohemianbritain.com, which makes me smile slightly. You'll know if you're a regular that we were voted, or this show was voted number 2 in the top 10 Bohemian podcasts and radio shows to follow in the world. Which made me laugh slightly because, I mean, how are you a good Bohemian? And is what I'm doing Bohemian? Apparently it is, my loves. Number 1, by the way, is an American outfit. They're in New York. I'll reach out to them later. Number 4 is called Soho Bites. They've been in touch as well because they want me to go on their podcast. So it's all happening. Oh, it's all going on. And what's going on at the moment as well, which is really exciting, is an organisation I can't believe I've only just come across, really. It's the Royal Society of Literature. And I'm joined today by Annette Brooke. Hello, Annette.
Hello.
Hello, and also Daljit Nagra.
Hello.
Hi, Daljit.
Hi, Nick. Hi,
so
Nick.
We're obviously socially distanced. If you're listening on Tut Wireless, we're obviously doing it from our various abodes, which we'll talk about in a minute, because who'd heard of Zoom a year ago? But just talk about, tell us about the Royal Society of Literature, because it's a brilliant organisation. I can't believe I didn't know it exists. I'm about to join as a member, but just tell us what it is, the Royal Society of Literature, and what it does.
Should we do it together, Annette? I'll start.
Go on. You start.
Stop, and you're going to step in.
Yeah, because I should say you're chair, aren't you, Daljit?
That's right. Yeah. So yeah. I'm testing my communications manager as I speak as well. So the Royal Society of Literature is a 200-year-old charity, started by King George, I believe. So a while ago.
King George IV.
King George IV. Yeah, because there's lots of Georges in that time and to come. And we are here to promote literature, the values of literature. We are here to celebrate and champion and award good literary writing. And we are here to promote literature to schools, to Resonance FM, wherever we can in the world. We are an exciting, in many ways, a young organisation. I know we're stuffy and old. We have been stuffy and old and exclusive, but we are no longer that. You only have to look at people like Annette and myself to notice that. Annette, you're both looking very well, because we've got, if you're watching this on YouTube, because I'm suffering quite badly from a lockdown haircut, and you're both very beautiful.
Oh, I don't know. I think I am. I've got more hair than this time last year. Let's say that, Nick.
Scissors from Boots the other day. My wife cut my hair.
Oh, you're very brave. Very brave.
It helps if you've got a brave wife as well. That's pretty good. And so when you talk about promoting literature, what does that mean realistically?
So the RSL was set up for the advancement of literature in the United Kingdom. That's our sort of mission, if you like, which has changed over the years. So 200 years ago, literature meant a different thing. It was a different thing. It was the sort of guardian of the elite. It was kind of held by the elite, I suppose. We don't define literature, and which makes it quite exciting. So we welcome writers of all forms, all types of literature. At the heart of the RSL is its fellowship, of which Daljit is a fellow. We have about 600 fellows, and this is sort of writers electing writers to a lifetime literary honour, if you like. You get FRSL after your name. And we're like the other learned societies. So there's the Royal Society, the Royal Society of Arts, the Royal Geographical Society, etc., etc., etc. We have a Royal Patron, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cornwall, who I know takes a great interest in pleasure in reading. And as Daljit's outlined, we do a great variety of work, which includes schools outreach. We do, when schools are open, they just are about, aren't they? We do a number of awards and prizes. We have a full events programme. We've got an event tomorrow evening, actually. All of our events are now on Zoom currently at the moment. So we've got an event looking at love tomorrow. So that should be quite fun. but yeah, we do a variety of work. I'm the communications manager, so I look after the external communications, which is like the website and social media and all sorts. But as Daljit said, it's a young organisation at heart. I think we're 200 years young rather than 200 years old. And yeah.
We've got like various initiatives that people can apply for. The Sky Arts Award, which is a 1-year mentoring. So if you want to be a non-fiction writer, you'll be mentored by a non-fiction writer or a poet or playwright or a screenwriter or a novelist. So people can apply for that. So you need to go on the Royal Society of Literature website and you can apply it. And this is something set up by Sky Arts and Bernardine Evaristo, who won the Booker, of course, last year, and who's been on council and is an important part of our team. So hopefully people want to apply for that. And we have various other things, don't we? We've got the Writers Across London project with in collaboration with London Museum. So people can go on the website for that, can't they, Annette?
Yeah, that's right. So Sky Arts RSL Writers Awards is for emerging writers of colour. So to sort of, Bernardine was particularly keen as an ambassador of Sky Arts to champion emerging writers of colour, and you will have heard her speak about this a number of times since her Booker win. So we're proud to be working with her on that. And yeah, like Daljit said, Right Across London is really exciting. You're part of that, aren't you, Daljit? So
I collaborate with another author. We wrote poems together, and we're inviting other people to write, aren't we, Annette?
So how does that work? The Writers Across London scheme.
So Right Across London is aimed at sort of addressing sort of kind of lockdown writing, if you like. So writing about COVID, not all depressing, we hope, but encouraging Londoners to sort of put pen to paper. And sort of share their poems with us. We're going to be creating a digital map of poetry from sort of, hopefully pinpointing different places across London where people can share and they can share their work on that. There are a number of Right Across London ambassadors, of which Daljit is one. And he said he's in collaboration with another poet, he's writing Zoom poetry, I suppose. Poetry over Zoom, is that?
Yeah, and you say people can submit poems, can't they? And they might be used by the Museum of London on their site, which is, Museum of London by Barbican. I'm sure. I
mean, it's a fairly significant building. You drive under it quite a lot if you go through that way, don't you?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's on the roundabout, isn't it? It's a bit weird. So commit to that, can't they? And actually,
they can. Yeah. So all details are on our website, but there's lots available at the moment for. Lots of things going on. We're also seeking, as I mentioned, the fellowship is at the heart of the RSL. We have RSL Open, which is open, if you sort of at the moment. We're just looking to diversify the fellowship, sort of, looking at those underrepresented communities that maybe we're sort of missing in our fellowship, and inviting public recommendations of writers who might be really great to be made fellows. So, that's.
It says sorry, Dad.
Nick, just to add, it was really important because, some writers get missed. We've got our council of authors and we may have missed making fellows of people, because they maybe from working class background, they're LGBTQS, living outside London, those sort of BAME who just have been neglected for whatever reason. So, since people like Annette and myself, we've become aware that maybe our group of elected fellows aren't diverse enough, and maybe we've missed authors. So this is a chance for the public to say, hold on, what about this person? I think they're a fantastic author, whether it be screenwriter, playwright, poet, novelist, whatever. I want you to consider this person. And we've got a kind of like adjudicating panel to made of very august names who'll be, reading through the work and selecting these people.
I got A+ at our secondary modern school. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Oh, yes. So we're talking about the Royal Society of Literature. And it's a 200-year-old organisation. We've got to get a bit. I mean, obviously, and you're obviously dealing extremely well with the current climate in the United Kingdom, with the lockdown and all the digital events. But go back. So you must have a physical place. And is it beautiful and crusty and Gothic?
It's Somerset House. So yes, in its own way.
Yes.
Yes, we've got an office in Somerset House. So one of the cultural tenants there. Sadly, we've been in the office for a year now. It's exactly a year, almost to the day. Just last week. We've had to adapt. I think everybody has, though, haven't they? And you do your best. You do your best.
Yeah, we've had a lot of interesting. festivals that have been arranged offline and online. And it's interesting how a number of people have said, in a sense, it's given us an opportunity to expand the base a little bit, because we've had no choice but to reconsider our traditional. I mean, I suppose perhaps most famously is the Edinburgh Festival at the moment, which is sort of half online, half offline. And Callal Dallat, who wrote, is an Irish poet who has a great festival in Ireland. He was saying it's fantastic because actually now we've been involving people from all around the world, because you could do it as we're doing now, sort of sitting at home, as it were. So, tell me about what does Dowager? What's your role then? So you're chair, we know that, but what are you really? Come on, spill the beans.
It's a very humble role, Nick. I sort of represent the council, and there's about 15 of us on the council. We have quarterly meetings about the various projects underway. So I chair those meetings, and I deal with the director on almost a weekly basis, and about any new initiatives we want to develop. And we're always thinking of broadening our kind of projects, our offers. At the moment, we're working with the Cultural Centre of Barcelona and developing some commissioning authors from Britain to work around, for example, just one word, have a word, and develop an idea around that word. Like I saw one which was just the word poem, and some East European writer written some amazing set of ideas around poem, and it was a film made with that. So it's a kind of beautiful film. So we're commissioning British authors to take part in that. We've got various other projects always on the go. We're always looking for new things to do to keep ourselves busy as we promote literature. And once you're a fellow, we try and get you some work as well, so you can help in turn to do things. Nick, you'll be doing that for us one day, I'm sure.
I will. I've got 2 plays and I got A+. I failed me 11+. So but that's gone now. The 11+. I'm not annoyed about that anymore. I'm not still hurting, Mr. Millward. But are you a writer? Is that your background?
Yeah, that's how I came. So I actually did an interview in 2007 when my first book came out with Resonance. I think it's Wendy. I can't remember the full name. Wendy. Yeah, she did a bit of Goldsmiths, and she's brilliant. And so I've had 4 books, all with Faber and Faber, and that's been. And I present a radio program called Poetry Extra on Radio 4 Extra every Sunday at 5 and noon and 5. So an extra promo in. It's called Poetry,
that's allowed.
And I repeat the all classic old poetry programs, whether they're from 5 years ago or from 40 years ago, whatever's in the BBC archive. Because as you know, obviously BBC poetry programming has been really made in the 1920s, but someone came along and destroyed all the programs. So the oldest we have from late 1950s or early 1960s. I think the oldest one we've come across is one with John Betchman doing an interview in 1962.
Brilliant. I mean, it's a shame that it's not there anymore. Yeah, and we did quite a lot with Dylan Thomas and being in Fitzrovia in the London Literary Pub Crawl, which is kind of where this podcast and radio show started originally. A version of that I wrote and directed, and it's been going out since 2012 actually. But we also got involved then in Dylan Thomas in Fitzrovia, which was a festival arranged mainly by Griff Rhys-Jones. I don't know if you know Griff Rhys-Jones, the sort of comedian and presenter, and Griff has got a place in Fitzrovia as well. And it was amazing the amount of archive that the BBC had got just with Dylan Thomas alone. So gets a bit of a bash in the BBC at the moment. We won't get political because we're in purdah now with local elections coming up in the UK. But it's a brilliant thing. And what books do you write? What's your genre, as they say?
Yeah, I guess I write adult poetry, which is exploring ideas about cultural mixing, how we get on with each other. Write love poems, kind of poems about Britain as a nation state, how we're seen abroad, and how we see ourselves. Those sort of issues.
And how did you get involved with the RSL originally, with the Royal Society of Literature?
I was elected as a fellow, so it's fantastic. A few years ago, I don't think I'd heard of them either, Nick, and I just assumed it's some stuffy organisation, anything with the word royal. And to my great surprise, they were doing really dynamic stuff, and I was invited to go into deprived schools to do workshops. And I've just met, loads of authors, and I'm really surprised the amount of work that's going on. Then I was elected onto council, and I was involved in some of the projects. So it's been a pretty exciting organisation.
Yeah, so, I mean, I came across the Royal Academy, just the Royal Academy, not the Royal Academy of Art, almost the same. I mean, in the days when you could actually go there, and they were when I first heard of that, I thought, oh, that sounds a bit stuffy as well. They were great. They were out there doing, I mean, all sorts of art basically, but it was, so it sounds a very similar kind of organization, in terms of trying to make a difference. And someone else made a point to me that actually a lot of the events that you arrange are because you feel they should happen rather than any great commercial pressure. I get a lot of, I mean, thankfully I get lots of stuff from publishers for this show, and I do lots with them, but this is kind of cool in that there doesn't seem to be any real commercial pressure in what you're trying to do.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. With something Annette and I haven't actually mentioned, we just pick things that we love. So we're going to have this new initiative where four authors will talk to each other about their writing process, and they don't have to have had a book out, which is great, isn't it? Like festivals, there's always somebody who's got a book out, but it might be somebody who hasn't written something for 10 years, but is working on something. So we're always kind of looking to put authors together who have been writing for 30, 40 years alongside new authors. And yeah, it's a kind of, it's a love, it's a passion. We're not here to make money. And as Annette said, we're based in Somerset House. It's a place we rent. We're not like those, European institutions, arts institutions, where they have these like august 19th century offices that are theirs. So we rent, and we I think in many ways we punch above our weight, to use that sort of horrible metaphor. But we've got a small team, but we do tons of stuff, and we keep people like Annette busy. We've got an amazing young team. Actually, our director's quite young, Annette's young, and the rest of our team are actually young, lively, enthusiastic people. Annette is a playwright herself, so she knows what it's like to be a writer and has a love of writing.
Yeah, Somerset House is quite interesting, isn't it? Because it sounds extremely posh, and it is very posh. But actually, was it a few years ago? Anyway, they kind of let out that's creative. It became a sort of area for small creative businesses to get a reasonable rent in the centre of London. I benefited from the Society of London Theatre. I had desk space in Carnaby Street, which was a similar sort of scheme. So I won a bursary for a play. So this is Resonance 104.4 FM. I'm Nick Hennegan. We're talking about the Royal Society of Literature with Daljit Nagra and Annette Brooke. Annette is in communications, and she's going to communicate in just a mo. You can, of course, as always, if you'd like to get in touch, email's probably the easiest now, radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. Thanks to those who donated to the Resonance fundraiser, which I think is now finished. But well done for that. And you can see and hear this not just on Tut Wireless, but also on the London Literary Pub Crawl.com podcast, on the Maverick Theatre YouTube page, which is a new initiative, and also on this new bohemianbritain.com, which I still can't say without laughing. So we're everywhere. So Daljit, are you a local boy originally?
Yeah, I grew up in a place near Heathrow Airport, just a couple of miles from there, a place called Useley by West Drayton. So, and my parents bought a shop in Sheffield in the 80s. So I lived in Yorkshire for about 15 years, but back here. But Annette, you've always been here, haven't you?
Yep, I'm South London born and bred. So
You're always on the
college.
And so Annette, you're doing communications, which is great. Is your background kind of PR, or is it literature? How did you end up here?
It's actually arts, broadly speaking, actually. So before the Royal Society of Literature, I worked at Spread the Word, which is, I knew Daljit then, didn't I, Daljit? Which is London's writer development organisation. They do lots of workshops and masterclasses and mentoring and great programmes. So it's kind of, I was there 5 years, great organisation. Heartily recommend them. And right across London, actually, they're one of the partners. So we have lots of partners at the RSL, and they happen to be one of those. Before that, a variety of arts organisations I worked for, including the Arts Council, arts admin, goodness, I got about. But I have a degree in English from Goldsmiths and a degree in arts, MA in arts administration.
Oh, wow.
So I just basically ended up doing the thing I should be doing, which is arts admin for a literature charity.
And what, because you write as well then?
I do. Yeah. So I'm part-time at the RSL, I work 4 days a week. And on Fridays, allegedly, I am to be found writing. It's hard in lockdown though, I must have to say. I write for theatre, and I need to be out in the world earwigging, and listening to. I just like listening to people on the sort of nosiness on the bus and so forth. I haven't been on a bus this year, frankly. But anyway,
it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, there's one or two people. Simon Stevens, the playwright, and there's a few other people have commented on the fact that. All this free time, but the distraction is not working. It's actually in the background. There's this notion that we can't actually go anywhere or do anything. So it must be difficult. And what started you writing though? What was it that pushed you over into the abyss, Annette?
Into the abyss. I used to write poetry, but unlike Dalgit, I wasn't particularly good. And I think I entered a competition. I had an idea for a play, and I'd had an idea for ages, but I thought you had to be a certain sort of person to write a play. So, which is, I don't know what I thought that person was, but I entered a competition that Channel 4 ran called The Play's the Thing. And I got through to the final 30 out of like 2,000 people. I was like, oh, all right. With this. And so people kept encouraging me to send my work, this was a long time ago, to Royal Court, to their Young Writers Programme. And I did, and got on that. And to be honest, that sort of started me off. It's I like the collaboration of theatre. I like the community, like the handing over to actors, a director. I like all that. I love being in a rehearsal room, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah. I know. Yes, I've written a few plays myself, and produced a few, of course, which is where Edinburgh comes into it. But and what about yourself, Dalgit? What got you into writing?
I'm probably, actually, funny. I think my story's a bit like that. I didn't think I'd be a poet. You have to be a certain type of person, unless you've been exposed to other authors, you've seen them in the flesh. You just assume you have to be from a good background, good education, all that stuff. So it was just more of a hobby. I just had to write. You got this imagination, this thing in your body, and you have to communicate with it. And it was I just wrote for a hobby really for years. And then I got one of those free hour session. Ruth Padell, the poet. I think it's half hour through Time Out. I just saw it in there and had a session. She said I should publish my poems. I showed her a few poems, and she said you should do this. She gave me a little roadmap, and I more or less followed that for the next few years. So sometimes, and as Annette just said, the kind of encouragement is what you need, isn't it? Early on, I got some mentoring and things like that. And I guess in RSL, in a sense, hearing Annette's story, mine probably is, that's why we're so passionate, I think, is encouraging new writing and celebrating writing and making sure people don't get neglected. I think if things like RSL Open it is about looking at underrepresented people. So many people write in oblivion almost, and quietly in the corners of the towns and the cities and regions of the country, and just don't get noticed. And sometimes feel they have to shout, and that's not fair on them because not everybody wants to shout to be heard.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, again, I joke slightly about the working class thing, but that's certainly been at Maverick Theatres. I mean, as a working class group, it just came from a slightly drunken vision and watching a film one night that we did a version of Shakespeare's Henry V, which has since gone around the world and done quite well. One-person version was not a comedy. And that only came about from a night at the pub. And then when we set up Maverick Theatre, none of us had got a degree. None of us knew anything about the arts administration. I mean, it was literally a classic lesson in how to get it wrong. But now it's quite nice, with a few years behind me, to be able to put a little bit back in those terms. And that's what Maverick's still about access. We're training producers at the moment. So it's fascinating. And so, in a sense, what happens when you become a fellow of the RSL? Because that sounds great.
Well, I think we all need recognition, don't we, Nick? At some point, as Annette said, you get this post-nominal, I think it's called, isn't it? This title after your name, which is great, isn't it? FRSL sounds really, like being an optician or something with those titles. You get that. I think sometimes you just need that boost, don't you? That recognition that you're part of a community who admires you. That there's a council of very celebrated authors, experienced authors from a range of different disciplines, and they think you are worth recognising for your excellence, whether it be or a non-fiction writer. So I think that in itself is a great validation. And then hopefully you'll do things with us for the RSL. We'll involve you in programmes and doing things, and hopefully you'll want to ride on that wave of celebration by going out there to tell other people that literature is great. It's life enhancing. Have a go.
Yeah.
Simple stuff like that, isn't it? Go and listen to writers. And as we've seen over lockdown, how important writing and listening to authors and reading books has been.
Yes, I mean, it's one of the things that's come across some of the interviews that we've done here is when we've talked about process, which we won't have time to talk about now, which is a shame. But anyway, don't get it right, get it writ. And of course, one of the glories of a book is you can be anywhere, can't you? So I also quite like the fact, I will just mention, because when you become a fellow, you have to sign a book, don't you? And don't you get a choice if you either choose, is it Dickens' pen or Byron's pen or something fantastic like that? Is that right?
Yeah, we've got a few more pens now. Dickens has been retired, his quill, because it splodges, I'm afraid, and it's got a bit moth-eaten. But we have Byron's pen, a lady's pen. I believe one of his various lady friends might have given that to him. We have T.S. Eliot's fountain pen. Got a pen from George Eliot's pen was the first woman's pen we acquired. And we have recently got Andrea Levy's pen, and Andrea Levy was a fellow, sadly died a little while ago, great writer, and Jean Rees's pen. Unfortunately, we haven't actually seen these pens in action yet because of lockdown. So
Yeah.
we've asked fellows which pens they would like to use and so on, and they're there waiting. Oh, now.
So yes, if you're watching on video now on YouTube, I've just got this is my quill. That actually it's $3.99 from the Royal Shakespeare Theatre souvenir shop, but it's all right. You know, it's got a ballpoint in the end. That's a brilliant. I mean, I love that. I love that notion of being able to choose which pen you sign with. How fantastic! Well, we've run out of time again. But let's just, before we finish, if anyone wants to know any more about the Royal Society of Literature, where should we go?
So our website is rsliterature.org.
rsliterature.org.
You can find us on Twitter at rsliterature, and on Insta, Royal Society of Literature, and Facebook and LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
And YouTube,
of course.
and SoundCloud. But anyway, I can go on. Just Google.
You've covered all. Yes, because it's the easiest one. Just put the search in for Royal Society of Literature. Thank you so much for your time, both of you. Thanks very much for coming on. I'm sure we'll have to talk again. And there's all sorts of events happening as well, which all sounds really exciting. So brilliant. Thanks very much for your time. And that's it. We've run out of time yet again. Thank you for your company. I'll see you next week. My name's Nick Hennegan. This is Literary London on Resonance 104.4 FM.